Still missing one of our panelists. In the meantime, I want to thank everybody for being here this afternoon. Late second day of the forum is tiring for all of us, I suppose. But thank you for being here nevertheless, and at home as well for watching us. We have a session now about a topic that I think was revealed also earlier in the forum to be very important for the islands. Storage and interconnections and how to balance those to allow the clean energy transition on the islands. Do you still hear me? Good. Because I had a huge echo and now it's gone, so it's great. All right, so we have two of our speakers online and four of them here with us. Thank you very much for coming all the way here and also joining us online. So I will briefly introduce you and then I'll give everyone the chance to present yourself and also some example you want to show us, some main points related to our discussion afterwards, during which we will also allow questions from the audience and also online. So we have here with us Mr. Professor Hatziargyriou from the National Technical University of Athens. We have Michail Chatzipanos from IPTO, the Greek TSO, Mr. Kyparissis from EURELECTRIC, and Professor Kaldellis from University of West Attica. And online, I cannot see, but do we have? Yes. We have Joana, Ferreira, Rita from the Azores. And we have Lucía, Blanco, Cano from let me say it correctly, the Ministry for the Ecological Transition and Demographic Challenge from Spain. I would like to give the floor maybe first to the ladies online to present their example or their message they want to share, and maybe I'll go first to Joana. Joana is Regional Director for Energy at the Azores, and she has experience to share on the Ecological project, and also they're aiming to reach 80% of renewables by 2030, but they're not interconnected. So please, Joana, share with us your introduction. Can we hear Joana?
Can you hear me? Okay. Are you seeing my presentation?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joana and I'm the Regional Director for Energy of the Government of the Azores. Before we begin, I would like to thank the Clean Energy for EU Islands Forum for facilitating my online participation on this event. The energy transition is a very relevant subject in the Azores, considering our position as an outermost region. We are an archipelago of 9 islands, inhabited by approximately 250,000 people, and they are located around 1,500 kilometers away from Lisbon. Our electricity market is regulated, and there is no grid connection between islands. Thus, we have 9 electric microsystems. This has resulted in an integration of renewable energy sources that is different from island to island, as you can see in the presented map. I would like to highlight the fact that we exploit the geothermal energy to obtain electricity since 1980. I would also like to highlight the case of Graciosa, the island with currently the highest percentage of renewable integration, higher than 65%. This percentage is due to an innovative private project, the Ecological, based on solar and wind farms with a storage system and a control strategy for electric generating system, which has an installed power of 5.5 megawatt. This island has been serving as an Azorian case study. Therefore, we have planned for the installation of storage systems and network regulation systems on all of our islands. Currently, electricity generated from renewable energy sources in the Azores is of approximately 37%. With the installation of the already mentioned storage systems and new wind and solar farms, we estimate to achieve a 60% renewable integration by 2025. Considering our stage of progress, we have completed our Azorian Energy Strategy 2030 proposal. The development of this strategic document has been integrated into the Clean Energy for EU Islands initiative upon the selection by the European Secretariat of 26 islands or archipelagos to present their strategy for the energy transition. To summarize, by implementing this strategy, we intend to reach the following targets by 2030. Reduce liquefying petroleum gas use by 50%, 25% energy efficiency in road transport, 28% energy efficiency in buildings, 40% energy efficiency in enterprises, 80% renewable electricity, 33% energy efficiency in global, and 41% reduction in energy gases, greenhouse gases emissions. We know that these are ambitious targets. We have already been developing this work through several policies, and we are developing new measures based on new financial instruments of the European Commission. I'm talking about, for example, the new community framework that we are designing, and the Recovery and Resilience Plan, whose budget will serve to increase the representativity of renewable energy sources in a centralized, through storage systems, and decentralized way. For example, the government of the Azores will implement an incentive system for the purchase of solar photovoltaic systems for self-consumption. It is meant for families, enterprises, and other Azorian entities. Also, we will implement a new incentive to promote decentralized energy storage. I will conclude this brief introduction by thanking the Clean Islands Secretariat for the support they have been giving us in the energy transition and for promoting interdisciplinary debates to lead to the improvement of the public policies to be implemented in each and every one of our islands and archipelagos. Thank you.
Very much, Joana, for being here as well, and we look forward to hear more about the projects you have in the Azores.
Thank you very much for the brief introduction. It's Michail Chatzipanos. I'm the Director of Transmission and Projects Department in IPTO, the Greek TSO, and I would like to share with you today our vision for connecting all major Greek islands by 2030. I have prepared just 2 slides to present our vision. You can see on the map on the screen, it's a depiction of the Greek electric transmission system, along with all the major projects we plan for the next few years up to 2030. I don't know if you are all familiar with Greek geography, but half of the Cyclades in the central part of the map have already been interconnected to the continental grid. The next part of the Cyclades will continue and conclude the next 2 years. We have finalized the connection of the biggest Greek island, Crete, with Peloponnese last year. It was a technological breakthrough, and we are continuing with the connection of Crete to Attica in the next 2 years. And with the green lines, you can see our vision for the next few years to interconnect Rhodes, Kos, and Karpathos in the Dodekanes archipelago, as well as all major big Greek islands in the North Aegean. Yeah, sure, thank you very much. As for the Ionian Islands, on the left side of the map, you can, they were all interconnected by 1970, and we're planning a major upgrade of those lines. Our vision as a TSO is to provide reliable, stable, and quality power supply from the mainland to the islands. And as the Greek goals for economy, for green power evolve and the energy mix of the continent becomes greener, we hope that the energy mix of the islands will get greener too. Additionally, as presented well here in this forum, all initiatives for greener islands will be able to transmit their energy back to the mainland, that's improving or maximizing the investment of these projects. Except for the major part, that it's the reliable, stable and quality power supply. Of course, other aspects of our investment are obvious. First of all, is the retirement or standby mode of costly local power stations that run mostly on fossil fuels. That causes also the drastic reduction of CO2 emissions, the improved quality of life, and improved touristic product for both the islanders and the visitors. It also makes us reduce costs of the services of general interests, and thus our investment gives back to not only to the residents of the islands, but to the whole Greek population. One other goal, it's improve renewable energy sources penetration. The interconnections offer better connectivity to the mainland grid and thus increase RES penetration rates. As far for energy storage solution, we're also trying to pioneer this sector as soon as the legislation permits us to do so. We think that energy storage is complementary to interconnections and can provide solutions to issues that modern TSO face. First of all, it can maximize the usage of stochastic sources of electricity and optimize network efficiency, especially in conditions of high renewable energy sources penetration rates that we can see on the islands and on the mainland. It can contribute to local congestion management, and it can, as I said before, complement the interconnections by enabling a further retirement of local power stations that previously were required to be present or on standby mode. We are planning on implementing pilots in Greece, both in the interconnected system on the mainland in Thebes, near Athens, and on the island of Naxos, co-located with the existing substation previously inaugurated for the interconnection of Cyclades. I hope I will be able to answer more questions and be part of the discussion. I hope I briefly presented myself and our goals, and give the floor to you.
Thank you very much, and that was on time, I think. Do we have Lucía online, and can we hear her?
Yeah, I hope it works now.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
Okay. So, good afternoon. Sorry for what happened with my microphone, and thank you very much for having us today. Let me share a very short presentation. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so I would like to start providing a very brief insight of the electric system in islands in Spain, as well as the measures that we are implementing to decarbonize islands. I am trying to put it full screen. Okay. Nothing's working at the first. In Spain we have mainly two archipelagos, Canary Island and Balearic Island. So the Canary Island has 3 gigawatts of power capacity. Almost 24% of it is renewable energy, providing around 20% of the energy demand in those islands. These are data from last year. And regarding Balearic Island, we have 8% of the power provided by renewable energy, but also we have an interconnection with the peninsula, from Mallorca to the peninsula, and also all the islands are interconnected between them. Around 4% of the demand is covered by renewable, but also 16% is covered by this interconnection cable. Okay, so regarding the institutional support for the decarbonization of islands in Spain, we have on one side the national strategy, the National Energy and Climate Plan, which contains 2 measures specific designated to decarbonization of islands. We also have the Energy Storage Strategy, which contains several measures to foster the storage in Spain, and specifically 1 line of action for the storage in islands. And as regards for investments, we also have the Spanish Recovery Plan, which contains also specific investments for island, such is the case of investment number 2 of component 7, which destinates 700 million euros for sustainable energy in islands, and also 1 component with 1,365 million euros, which is focused on fostering the energy storage, the flexibility, and the digitalization of grids. And this is for the whole territory, but it also includes, of course, islands. Regarding interconnections, as I mentioned before, we have all the Balearic Islands connected between them, and Mallorca with the peninsula, with a cable in high voltage DC providing 400 megawatts. It's 240 kilometers length, and it's submarine, going up to 1,465 meters depth. And regarding the new projects in interconnections, we have the projects contained or included in the transmission network plan in 2021-2026, which is binding, and it includes a new interconnection in Canarias between Tenerife and La Gomera, which will be a cable of 2 cables of 50 megawatts, and it is foreseen to provide a reduction of emission of 16 kilotons per year. And also in the Balearic Islands, as I said, they are all connected, but there are some projects to reinforce the interconnections already existing. And finally, I would like to mention very, very quick a very flagship project that is projected in Gran Canaria, in the Canary Island, which is the Salto de Chira. It's a hydro-pumping project, which will be operative in 2026. It is also included in the transmission network planning for the upcoming years, and it will be used as a tool for the system operation. It will have 200 megawatts, and the main benefit is that it will enable that more than 50% of the demand will be provided by renewable energy. That's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucía. Yeah, Spain also has quite ambitious plans for storage and interconnections. We will gladly hear about that more later as well. I'll move on to Professor Hatziargyriou. There's a lot to say about him. You're Professor Emeritus at the NTUA on power systems, but you also have experience in HETNO, the Greek DSO, and PPC, the Public Power Corporation, and different positions also in the EU Technology and Innovation Platform on smart networks for the energy transition. Please share with us a little bit of your experience and examples that you've brought here for us.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I think the first more serious attempt in Greece to develop islands with a very large penetration of renewables was in 2017, when HETNO thought of introducing large penetration of renewables in islands. And to do that, of course, he had to install storage, because you cannot really operate islands for many hours on renewables without storage. So the idea was to, in order to increase gas penetration, I mean, beyond 70 to 80%, the idea was not to increase the total energy cost by doing that, provide sustainable solution, provide an attractive investment, ensure security of power supply, minimize impact on thermal production, and get expertise and know-how on how to replicate the solution to other islands. So what happened was that there were 3 islands selected. These were Symi, Astypalia, and Kastellori-Zormegisti, based on their size, installed renewables already, operational cost, renewable penetration, already existing renewable penetration, interconnection plans. So we don't want to select islands that were going to be interconnected by IPTO quite soon. And at that time, I must say that the operational costs were very high. There were islands, small islands, that the cost per megawatt hour was even 7 times more than the mainland Greece. So based on these factors, also the age of the diesel units and etc., and the type of fuel that was consumed, selected these 3 islands. And the way it was going to run was to have HETMA providing technical specifications, and the project will be realized by investors via tenders that they will be held by the Regulatory Authority of Greece. That was included in a law, as you see there, to promote these 3 special pilot projects. HETMA had run a large number of studies and to prove that this was feasible and was also quite good, a good attractive investment. So you see here what was the maximum bid that were foreseen, and also the IRR that was around 11%. That was good. Of course, realizing such a project was quite difficult, because if you want to run a system with 70–80% of renewable penetration per year, you should have a large number of hours that the system would operate purely on renewables and batteries. And running a system on batteries, on power electronics, is not easy, especially regarding frequency and protection. So frequency, because you lack the necessary spinning reserve, the necessary inertia of the system, because you don't have any more the diesel. You must employ quite sophisticated techniques to be able to control the system, mainly use quite advanced power electronics and other technologies. And the other fact is that since again you have power electronics that are connecting your units, you don't have enough short-circuit currents to operate your protection. So this is also a very serious concern, and that was problems that we were thinking of. And if you go to the next slide, you will see that this is now quite, there's a lot of research going on in several universities and research centers also in Greece. For instance, you will hear next more research coming, and also NTUA has done a lot of research. Here you see a current project that is called Re-Empowered, and where you have an EU-Indian collaboration, where European experts in the field, European groups, are trying to collaborate with Indian groups to transfer knowledge and know from each other from this type of projects. From the Greek side, we participated with Kyparissis, which is an emblematic problem for Greece. It is the first microgrid in Europe, so we have developed their technologies to operate a number of residencies for on 100% renewables, so that has been a very rich research field. And also Bornholm, which is also a very famous installation in Denmark, sorry, where you know now it's moving to more technologies like integrating energy vectors from gas and renewables. And we are going to install this in 2 areas in India. The one is in Konjar, where you have isolated villages, which are like electrical islands. And then you have Goramar Island. This is a very interesting case. It's an island that where residents live in very poor conditions. There are cyclones. We've developed special very resilient installations from renewables, and we will build microgrids there also based on our experience. So that's a very high-level overview of what happens. I'm going back to storage during the discussion.
Thank you very much. Of course, Indian islands have differences from Greek islands, I would say more in the regulatory perspective, but it's always interesting to see also such examples. I'll move to Professor Ioannis John Kaldellis. He's Vice Rector for Research and Lifelong Learning at the University of West Attica, also head of the Lab on Soft Energy Applications and Environmental Protection, and also has worked on multiple energy projects on Greek islands, and for example also the Tilos hybrid station project. Could you share some insights with us, please? And I forgot to mention also expert for DG Regio for the Greco Islands initiative that you presented also yesterday for us.
Okay. Thank you for the invitation. It's okay.
I think it's working, yeah. The clicker, jetzt διαφάνειες, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure to be with you here, to be in such a great panel. Okay, we are working for the last 20 years at least in the case of island fair transition, green transition, using renewable energy storage, including also demand management, and also interconnection is also a useful tool. However, despite our long conversations for the last 20 years, the situation is almost the same. Mm-hmm. As you can see, the installations in the islands concerning the wind parks and the photovoltaics have been stagnated since, let's say, 2014. We have the same wind parks, the same photovoltaics almost. The contribution of the renewable energy sources in the islands remains less than 20%, excluding the Crete, which has 23, 24%. The other islands have, as you can see here, 70, 70, 75%, 7.5. So we have the same situation during the last 10 years. This is a problem. Of course, in the previous presentation, I should also emphasize that the cost of operation of these power stations, autonomous power stations, is high, but now the cost in the mainland is even higher. So we have lost, let's say, the privilege of lowering the cost. Now natural gas is more expensive than the operation of the autonomous power stations, and we don't know about the future. Okay, also we want to mention another issue as far as concerns the collaboration between energy storage and interconnections. First of all, I believe that using interconnection is a great project. It will provide security of supply to all the islands. On the other hand, one should also take into consideration that we have another two pillars: the cost of energy, which is not very cheaper now, and also, as we call it, the sustainability of the solution. I'm not sure that we are going to, let's say, obtain the targets of the national plan for climate and energy based only on the mainland. The target is, let's say, 60-65% participation of renewables. But in my opinion, it's much more easier to obtain this result in islands. It's much more easier to make an island energy autonomous, but you need also support. You need also energy storage or the connection of both of them. In my mind, I think that you should use also energy storage and interconnection and find the optimum solution. In some islands, there is no need to interconnect them. They are very small, they can operate using hybrid power stations. But even in the islands of the size of Lesbos, for example, or big, similar islands, you can use local storage, because also in the mainland we are obliged to use storage. Otherwise, we cannot obtain the target of, let's say, 60% less contribution in the electricity consumption, electricity production. Here I have selected two figures. It concerns the contribution of wind powers and photovoltaics. The data are for the last 5 years, and you can see that the majority of the year, the wind parks and photovoltaics operate less than, let's say, 30% of their nominal power. That means that without storage, you cannot have a guarantee of power. And the situation that already exists in islands, in the near future will appear also in the mainland. Since we have assumed that we need storage, almost 2,000 megawatt, it's a last study by the National Technical University of Athens, to support the local grid, the mainland grid. The same idea, I think, is valid also for the islands. Mm-hmm. So my approach is use interconnection to support the systems, to offer, let's say, a supply of security, but at the same time, you should also use local production and local storage in order to stabilize the system and have also another weapon against, let's say, the unexpected events that we can face in the islands, especially in winter and all this. Our proposals, we work on these figures during the last 30 years. I hope that before I retired also, as Professor has already retired, to see some examples that operate for big and medium-sized lines. We have the case of Ikaria, but it does not operate as it has been designed initially. It stores energy from the wind parks and not provide them to the grid. First store the energy to hydro and then get back the hydro production. And also to apply for the medium and small size islands the classical, let's say, concept of using batteries or some technology like similar technology. In any case, we have a lot of energy storage techniques. We can collaborate. In some cases, we should collaborate in order to stabilize and have energy supply security. And since we talk continuously about the, let's say, the energy autonomy of islands, for example, I want to remind you that, I would like to remind you that we have already an example which is not as successful as we expect. But even not as successful, it has an energy autonomy of 50%, and the target is 70%. It's the case of Tilos. It operates with a small wind turbine, which is accepted by the local population, because this is also a point. We cannot build huge wind parks in the islands. We should respect their energy, the ecosystem, the local population. So we have installed a small wind turbine, a small wind park, photovoltaic park, a minimum size of batteries, 3 megawatt hours is, let's say, the total installation, and we can provide almost 50% of the energy consumption of the island. We can provide much higher, but we should collaborate better with the local power station, of course. In the figure that is at the down left, we can see the balance of between the demand and the production during the winter. You can see that there are several times, the periods of time, that we produce more energy than we consume. In any case, in Tilos we have also installed small installations to provide electricity for EV charging, for electric vehicle charging, and something that we don't take into account, we need to save energy and to collaborate with the consumers. The demand-side management is also a very good weapon, and you can, let's say, also affect the consumption and the production. Closing, yes, closing. I believe that we need for a holistic approach, and not only to solve the electricity demand. We should try to optimize the management of water resources, waste management, use also clever and green ways to charge electric vehicles. And this is, let's say, the Greek Islands initiative. We try to have an holistic approach. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you raised a lot of the points we are also intending to discuss, although we're running late on time. So it's good that you already mentioned some of them. I will give the floor to Mr. Kyparissis, who's here from EURELECTRIC. He's there chairing the network of experts on island systems and is also head of storage and islands energy transition unit of PPC as well. Please go ahead and share your introduction.
Thank you very much, Christina. Also, I'm participating in this distinguished panel as a representative of the network of experts of island systems in EURELECTRIC. I would like to thank very much the secretariat for giving EURELECTRIC this opportunity to contribute in this very interesting discussion. The members of our network, we represent the main electricity supply and distribution stakeholders in EU islands, in most EU islands, meaning we operate and the electricity generation, both conventional and renewables, and we run the networks in most islands. That means our everyday work is actually making sure that islands are supplied with reliable electricity and that we are there to intervene whenever things go wrong, because unfortunately this happens. At the same time, we participate in planning and implementing the transition to clean energy agenda of the islands, and for us this is a great responsibility since we are already there, and we have to make sure that any action that we do does not interfere negatively with the electricity systems and does not hinder the security of supply of these systems. Keeping this in mind, when EURELECTRIC produced its paper Charge on the electricity industry perspective on storage in Europe, we made sure that this work includes also the case of storage in islands. Without going into the details, which you can see if you're interested by downloading the report, in this case of the islands, we explain how storage as a concept answers critical challenges posed by the insularity characteristics of the islands, as well as meeting their short-term needs and strategic needs. This, we believe, can be approached through a multi-service enabler, which is storage, by integrating storage into existing generation, both renewable and conventional, as standalone grid support storage, as also the previous speakers mentioned, holistically looking by integrating all energy system components, including storage. And of course, as I think it has very limitedly been discussed in our meetings today, as a support to final consumers through residential and commercial and industrial solutions. What I would like to emphasize, though, is the second part of our topic, which is the implications of the interconnections. We believe that the discussion of the clean energy transition needs to come back to its actual objective, which is maximizing the decarbonization of the islands and safeguarding their security of supply. We tend to use very much the idea that islands are ideal test beds for testing novel ideas. This is very nice. However, we should always keep in mind that islanders themselves, they are not test beds. So a every solution that we propose, we must always keep in mind that in no way should we hinder their existing security of supply, but on the contrary, we should make sure that we increase it if we can. In this perspective, we believe that there is no holy grail for the clean energy transition, and interconnections is not the holy grail as well. We believe, as Mr. Kaldellis has mentioned as well, that a combination of solutions is necessary in order to achieve greener, cheaper, and more reliable islands. Interconnections are a tool, a very important one. It can be also quite expensive sometimes, but still a tool which has its pros and its cons. As far as the decarbonization is concerned, the interconnections will bring the islands into the decarbonization level of the mainland, which can be higher or lower than the decarbonization of the islands. And we might also be able to achieve higher decarbonization on a non-interconnected island than in the mainland. So interconnections do not necessarily decarbonize the islands. You might actually carbonize them. In the same approach, we should always keep in mind increasing the security of supply of the islands through interconnections. Again, this is not a fact. There are cases where non-interconnected systems are more reliable than the interconnected ones, and Greece is an example. If you look at the system average duration interruption index, SID, for those who know, it's higher in the mainland than in the islands. It's 140 minutes interruptions in the mainland, whereas it's in average in the islands is 101 minutes. So on an average, non-interconnected systems in islands in Greece are more reliable. What we try to convey, the message is that every time we discuss about interconnections, we shouldn't consider them as holy grail, but look on the specific case, assess all the parameters, check the dynamics and the prices, and then decide of how to implement it and how to perhaps enhance its operation, also through storage, as our dear colleague from IPTO has mentioned. This is my basic takeaways.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I think you have already agreed with the previous speakers that interconnection is not the holy grail, and I think this is also what the session is about. So I think perhaps there's no need anymore to discuss why we need something, interconnections or storage, because all the examples we saw earlier have already mentioned that they have grid restrictions, they want to apply more renewables, but this is not working on isolated island systems. I wanted to ask what are the benefits of interconnections, but I think you have already covered that in your presentation, Michail. So my question would perhaps be, what are the challenges with interconnections? Obviously, it's costly to connect all the islands, but what do you experience as a TSO in Greece? We have a mic here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Christina. I agree with all the panel that interconnecting islands is a very costly sport. So a rigorous cost-benefit analysis has to be performed in order to be 100% sure that the investment performed would be would return the money to either to basically the consumers. The other important part is securing the funds. Hopefully, the European Union, the frameworks, and the RRF have provided quite a significant amount of funds in order to expedite and help us implement the interconnections. One other important factor is, of course, the local community and all the stakeholders on the islands in order to find the better possible solution, either for placing the location of the substation, the location of the landfall of the cable, or the routing of the cable, or all the details about the interconnection implementation. Hopefully, most of the islands, or I think that the biggest majority of the islands in Greece, where we had our previous project, are very welcoming of the interconnections because of the benefits, especially during the summer period. I agree that maybe on an average scale, problems in the island systems might seem a little better than the interconnected system, but it is those critical moments during summer period where all the tourists are here, where the consumption is triple or quadruple, that you need the power right in that specific moment. And I addressed the problems in Santorini, where we had the big blackout like some years ago, where the whole touristic product was almost was heavily, let's say, affected, or a big earthquake in Crete last year, where the interconnection, just a few months of operation, had saved the day without big interruptions in the system of the island. So yeah, I guess these are the biggest challenges. And to add, the technology has evolved during these last years and has enabled us to perform even more complex interconnections. Interconnections are heavily technology oriented, especially in the Aegean Sea, where we face big depths, steep inclinations, rough sea bottom profile. So we need new technologies, lighter cables, new protection schemes in order to implement our solutions.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a bit related to what Kostas was also saying, that you need to guarantee a security of supply, which I've heard some examples of connected islands that had a failure of the cable, and then they didn't know what to do because they were counting on that, of course. So I would like to ask Kostas, so what do you think is the role of storage and the role of interconnections? How is it relevant for the clean energy transition of islands? But before that, I want to say that we have a part reserved for questions from the audience, but I think it might be more relevant if you ask your question when we're discussing a specific topic. So if you think you have something to add or to ask on what we're currently discussing, I encourage you to raise your hand. And also, if you are online, we have a colleague here checking the chat, and we'll try to also address your questions from online. So, Kostas, what is, how are interconnections relevant? I think you addressed already that we need them, but also, please go ahead.
I did, and it's very good that our colleague from IPTO mentioned an example. I would like also to give some other examples, like the one which our member from Malta shared to us, that in the end of 19, beginning of 20, Malta, which up to that time had believed that they discovered also the Holy Grail, they stayed without electricity for 3 months because the interconnector went out. This is another case, and we can also remember in Greece, last summer with the very serious wildfires, when the substation from where the interconnectors start to go to the islands was in danger, and all the polluting units in the islands were in standby, so that if the interconnector goes wrong, that they would have to step in. The idea that we'd like to share is we have to think combination of solutions. The standby generation is necessary. The ideal would be to be fueled by bioliquids, biofuels. However, storage can be the intermediate between the long-term needs, if, for example, the interconnectors or the thermal units go wrong for a long duration. But for some seconds, minutes, or perhaps a few hours, storage can step in and save the day when things go wrong. So we need to have a portfolio of solutions in place and not a single one.
We have a question from the audience. Please.
Thanks. Just a question adding on to that. I think of two extremes, the cheapest and the most expensive probably. So if you think of the cheapest, it's probably pumped hydro. And there's the excellent example of the 200 megawatt in Canaria. And so my question is there, what are the barriers? You know, it's impactful for the environment that we know, but how can it be used? Because it's obviously excellent in terms of balancing the solar excess during the day, which is also can be here an issue. And then if I think of the most expensive, it's probably long distance cables. Think of long distance to Africa, like the Euro-Africa interconnector. Is that a model that we have to think of for the future, not only in Greece but in Europe, connecting to Africa, long distance, in order to import some of the renewables that we can get there, or stabilize the grid, if that's an added benefit from those connections?
Did you address this to a specific person, or who would like to take that?
May I step in just for words?
Yeah.
Pumped hydro, it can be the solution for days, perhaps weeks, but it's not the solution for long-term renewables integration. For that, you will need a constant energy carrier, which could be hydrogen sometime in the future. So I believe that pumped hydro is a medium-term storage solution. It would still need the long-term, hopefully a green one.
Does someone want to add something, perhaps online, Lucía or Joana? You also don't have to. Michalis wants to add something.
Just for the interconnection for the Africa, and I was recently in a convention, a global convention for HVDC, and it was fascinating for me, because I haven't realized, is that it was a paper where someone just added all the global consumption by month for every continent, and every production with renewable sources for every continent. And when it all summed, it seemed that the market was balanced. And so the proposal was in order to take advantage of different solar and different time zones, we would have, in an ideal world, connect all the continents, but vertically, not horizontally, not vertically. So maybe this could be a global solution, but it's so far away, and that would need like a global cooperation in a level out of this, or out of proportion. What I want to say is that there is a solution, but there are also the barriers that you mentioned. So we have to balance, and I completely agree that we have to find this exact balance between interconnections, storage, renewables, hybrids, in order to maximize the benefits for today and maybe plan for the future. So.
Thank you.
If I may add something?
For sure,
very,
yes.
very quick. Now, I just wanted to say that, well, energy transition, it's so challenging, but I think that every technology has their own role, and all of them need to be considered, because the challenge that we are facing is huge.
Yes, indeed. And I actually wanted to ask one of you experts here. We have different technologies, but also different purposes for different storage systems to support the grid, but also to reduce curtailment of renewable generation. Does one of you want to give us an overview or explain what different options are available for islands? And maybe which ones need to be implemented by the company or DSO managing the grid, or can be implemented by companies, or how home batteries come in, for example? Because storage is very broad, but we have all these different aspects. Maybe, Nico, you want to comment on this?
I can say a few things. Regarding storage technologies, well, hydro is good and is medium-term storage, but there is no hydro, there is no water in the Greek islands, not even for drinking. So you can't really use hydro in many islands, except of one island, Ikaria, where you have such a plant. Perhaps one of the few ones that exist. Also, for sure, in Greece is the only one. Now, regarding hydrogen, I think it's a very long-term solution. In order to produce hydrogen, and in fact, green hydrogen, you need a lot of electricity. This thing has a lot of losses. To produce energy from hydrogen means to take water, to perform electrolysis, to take the hydrogen and then use that back to provide electricity. This has terrible losses. So it's really not an effective solution unless you have a very, very abundant energy from renewables. Then it makes sense. So it's not a solution that is going to happen for several years to come. So the only option is batteries. So today, batteries is a viable technology, cost is falling, and I think it's the best option with current days. Now, who will and how will battery will be installed? At the moment, the only option again for Greece is to provide hybrid stations. So people who run renewables can also install batteries, so they optimize their hybrid stations, providing what they say firm capacity. Okay, so you can provide to the operators of the island, to HEDNO, a firm capacity for the next day. The other two options, having the operator owning batteries, is not allowed today, as far as I know, in Greece and in Europe in general. And regarding what is called behind-the-meter storage, this very dispersed type of storage, again, does not make sense in Greece because we have what is called net metering, which means that you cannot use it for arbitrage, let's say, because you have the whole network that acts as a huge battery, and it's free, so you don't need to implement behind-the-meter storage. Mm-hmm. So this is, in brief, the whole story.
Thank you. Does somebody want to add something? Maybe Lucía, if there are differences in Spain, although I would like to go back to the regulatory framework later, but is there something you would like to add now? Or is there a question from the audience? We have a question, if Lucía doesn't want to add something yet.
No, well, in the case of Spanish Island, it's pretty much the same. We don't have many water there, but the project of Tirasoria, it's into, I don't know how to say, two pools. So it just interchanges the water from one place to another, and it's the only project foreseen there. But yeah, actually our battery is the technology that we think will have a more important role in islands.
Thank you. Kostas, quickly, go ahead, and then we take the question.
We believe, again, a spectrum of storage solutions is necessary because not every storage solution does the same thing technically and market-wise. So, for example, in Spain, where we have pumped hydro storage power plant of El Hierro, which is a great project, it still needed some support from batteries in order to regulate their frequency. They had frequency problems. So you cannot solve all your problems with just one solution. Again, you need in the same place to apply, for example, for immediate response, you need to apply ultracapacitors. For short-term storage, you need to apply lithium, for example, batteries or other type of electrochemical batteries. For longer duration storage, perhaps flow batteries. For medium pumped hydro and for long-term hydrogen. So with one technology, you don't solve all issues. Mm-hmm. Again, you need a combination.
I think that we can use also flywheels, because in Eliero exist also flywheels. In order to support and control the frequency. They are connected in the same, in the same axis, they have hydro and flywheels. Okay. So, as previous speaker mentioned, we have several solutions, and we should find the best one every time.
Thank you. We can have the question, please.
Hello. Would you like to ask regarding the battery storage systems in the long term, that is 10 plus years, what is their impact on the environment measurable and in such a level to pose obstacles in their use? In other words, which technology will impose less impacts on the environment regarding recycling and pollution in general?
Thank you. Who's the expert on that?
No, I'm not an expert, but we are working in energy storage technologies. I think that the analysis should be on life cycle. So, for example, the water pumping stations operate for more than 50 years. On the other hand, let's say batteries have, at least lead-acid batteries have 5-6 years. So the analysis is not very simple. Every solution and every intervention in the environment has also negative impacts. In any case, we should find the best solution, taking into account not only the financial but also the environmental impacts, not only the financial results, and also, as I have mentioned, also the energy supply security, which is also a very important issue. So we find the equilibrium. It's not easy to give a direct answer what energy storage solution is the best one or the most environmental friendly.
In this respect, there is also a European Union initiative, Battery Alliance, where European Union is very aware, of course, of this issue. And since batteries will be accumulated also from cars as well as from utility scale installations in the coming years, there is this very important initiative by the European Union where companies producing these products will be obliged to look on the life cycle of their products, both in their production as well as in their end life.
Thank you. I would like to ask maybe John and afterwards Lucía, based on your experience, what are the obstacles to actually implement storage currently on Greek islands or in Spain? You have tried that with Tilos. Were there issues? Was it smooth? Everybody can replicate that, or?
Okay. Every energy storage technology has some difficulties. So as far as the battery is concerned, okay, you need time to charge and discharge them. You have, let's say, for example, the batteries that we use in Tilos, they need to be hot. The temperature, operational temperature is 300 degrees of Celsius.
I don't mean so much technical, but maybe regulatory or finding subsidies.
In my opinion, the storage supports all the operation of the system. We can provide guaranteed power to the coast power stations for 5 hours, let's say 500 kilowatt. It's a quite important figure as far as the Tilos Island is concerned, because its maximum power demand is 900 kilowatt. So if you can provide back for 5 hours guaranteed power, the half of the demand of the maximum demand of the island, and we do it. Mm-hmm. Okay, and of course we compensate for this because we provide guaranteed power. The same issue is also in water pumping. In career, there are some problems to operate directly water pumping and wind turbines. So they first store the production in the pump hydro and use the water in the hydropower station to provide electricity, so they lose let's say, the losses to charge continuously the pump hydro station.
Lucía, would you like to add something about challenges, obstacles, I would say, not only technical, but also more generally, that you have seen?
Well, from my point of view, there is like two main challenges or obstacles, which is on one side the regulation, which in the case of Spain is being adapted, but it's not completely adapted yet. And on the other side, the market, and especially in Ireland, where there is no market. So yeah, I think those are the main obstacles. A regulatory framework needs to provide with certainty to stakeholders, but the complete transformation to include storage requires time and resources. So I think now we are in a time lapse where the storage must cohabit with this process of transformation of the regulation. And as for markets, it's the same. Currently, they are not fully adapted to the participation of energy storage, and this might lead to scarcity of market signals for investors, especially in Ireland, where, as I say, there is not a wholesale market, but a regulated retribution scheme that is limited to the coverage of costs. And I think there's also obstacles related to the technology, to the maturity of the technology, because whereas many technologies such as ion lithium batteries or hydro pumping are very, very mature today, some other technologies still need to be further developed, to be cost effective, and to be able to participate in the market in the same conditions of other technologies. So I think the role of R&D here is crucial also.
Also in the regulatory study that the secretariat has made, this appeared also very often a problem, a lack of a regulatory framework for storage, and some conditions that would allow investors to invest in storage. As we said here, it's also not allowed to have in Greece currently standalone storage facilities. I believe the same in Spain. But have I understood well that you're currently also changing, adapting the regulation for storage? Do you think this will solve some of the issues, or is there much more way to go, let's say? Lucía.
Well, I think the aim is that it works eventually. So, yeah, well, actually, in Spain, the regulatory framework, storage was included in the electric sector law in 2020. And since then, the regulation is being adapted. So, I think we have made great steps, but still there is some work pending. So, for example, it is included in the regulatory framework, the standalone storage, but there is still some technical procedures that has to be adapted. So nowadays, for most, for licensing, for example, energy storage is considered as a generator, but we still have to work in the specific technical procedures to make it work.
Yes, thank you. And in Greece as well, we have a new draft law, I want to say, that has been through public consultation. Does someone want to comment on what you expect that it will change in the field of storage? Maybe Nikos, have you?
I'm not very well aware.
Michail.
As some of you that were present in the session in the morning, that from the ministry had informed us that the final draft consultation was concluded in the 10th of May. There has been this draft law that enables storage solutions to be implemented and sets the framework of their permitting process. Also inside this law, we hope that there is the possibility for the TSO and the DSO to implement their storage solutions under certain conditions. In general, when this is specifically involved to their operations. So we really hope that this will help. And as mentioned in the morning session, there is a goal from Greece of 3.5 gigawatt of storage. So it's a very important number. I don't know if we will be able to achieve it by 2030, but it's something that to look on.
Yeah, thank you very much. There's, of course, a big discussion to be had on regulation of storage, but we cannot have it right now. I want to go to Joana, whom we haven't heard for a while, and maybe, because you mentioned also the Ecological project that you have in the Azores, could you tell us a bit more about it and what lessons we can learn perhaps from that as well?
Yes. Thanks to the Ecological project, we already have an island with a roughly 65% renewable integration. After this project came into function, we have seen that there is an increase of renewable energy penetration, the improvement of service continuity indicators with a reduction to zero of interruptions in production, an increase in the viability and resilience of Graciosa's electric power system, the improvement of the quality of service provided to customers, considering the resisted voltage and frequency, an increase in the flexibility of renewable resource management, adjusting the production profile to demand, a safety guarantee of operation regarding critical disturbances, and no more need for spinning reserve generally used thermal power generation, seen as the system is now capable of responding to generation contingencies in the milliseconds. To summarize, the operation of Graciosa electric power grid its quality of service have improved as a result of the energy storage systems coming into function on the island. Considering all of the benefits I have just listed, we have decided that this technology should be considered for all islands. We are certain that energy storage will be a turning point in the energy market for the next few years. I think it's important to say here that we try to interconnect the islands. In 1977 and 1981, we have an undersea cable, but there were recurrent breakdowns and the higher repair costs led to its abandonment. In the subsequent years, in 2022 and 2010, new studies rendered the solutions uneconomical given the high probability of the cable failure. Due to the extreme depths between the Azores Islands, coupled with the rough basalt ocean floor and strong ocean currents. Recently, a feasibility study has been conducted by the Clean Energy for EU Island Secretariat following the strong technological development of undersea cables and its worldwide implementation. However, the investments remain too high, so we concluded that in our case, the use of storage system is more viable and reliable. That's why we are betting on the storage systems to stabilize the frequency and give the spinning reserve to the islands.
Thank you. And I think it's nice to see, because we have a lot of Greek speakers here, but of course islands in Europe are not only Greek. I'm Greek myself, so we make a pretty Greek panel here. But yeah, I see that interconnection doesn't seem to be, for everyone the best solution. And thank you for your contribution there. We have a little bit of time left. I wanted to ask something that maybe is more interesting for the islanders here. What can the role of local or regional government be to support the deployment of storage? For example, some countries give subsidies for storage, residential maybe storage. For example, we are doing a study with the Clean Energy for Ioannis Secretariat for Menorca. But also there, the regional government is doing some things there. Maybe, Lucía, you would like to weigh in on that?
Yes, sure. In the case of Spain, we have support schemes for self-consumption, which is the regional governments who make the calls and who provide the investments. So I think they have a very important role there. And also, as you mentioned, Menorca, they have also published their own energy transition roadmap, which is the Menorca 2030 strategy, and it includes concrete objectives to cover around 85% of the island's energy demand from renewable energies by 2030, and to reduce the island's emissions by 71%. So I think also there the local government has a very, very important role.
Yes, all right, I'm back. Somebody else want to add something there, Joana, or some of my other panelists on the role of the local government?
I believe residential storage can be an important part of the chain of the storage solutions, since by integrating residential storage into smart grids in islands, this can reduce the burden into the grids from the one side, and from the other side, promote the participation of islanders in this in the solution of these problems. And I think local governments can have an important role in informing inhabitants in the islands of how they can contribute by their residential batteries.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And this leads a bit to my next and perhaps last question. What is the role of citizens? What can citizens do? Maybe individually, but also in energy communities, in terms of storage. Nikolaos?
Well, the current legislation in Greece supports the formation of energy communities, and I think this is a great idea to make citizens active and raise awareness and make them very much, part of this transition game, which means how they can be involved to increase renewable penetration. In particular for storage, of course, storage can be a solution to this increasing of penetration, but I still think that with the current legislation, the behind-the-meter storage does not do that, because at the moment there is, what I said before, the net zero metering approach, which means that you can, when you have a surplus of energy, you can send it to the network, and when you need it, you can take it from the network. And this can be equalized for a very long time. I don't remember how long it is. So it is as if you have the network itself being a huge storage. And this is quite popular to have net metering in Greece, and quite supports a lot the energization of the citizens. So this is somehow contradictory, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if this, if this stops, then there is room for storage. Otherwise, I don't find any business case for storage behind the meter.
And can energy communities that implement a larger PV solar plant or a wind turbine combine it with storage? Would that be something for an energy community then? And in terms of efficiency, I guess it's more practical to have a bigger storage than everybody at home have a little battery and try to aggregate that. Because not every country has this virtual net metering. So I believe in Belgium they're trying to promote also batteries at home and the participation of aggregators in flexibility services, etc.
I'll answer. Yes, in a number of countries who don't have net metering, storage at home is very popular. The first example is Germany. Germany also supports its own industry with a lot of home installations of battery, coupled with photovoltaics. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
You want to add something?
I would like to add something. We should not forget that storage has losses. Generally, we lose 1/3 of the energy imported. Not in all cases, but as a general rule. Yes.
15%.
For example, the water pumping had a round-trip efficiency of 65–70%. Okay, lead-acid batteries had only 90%, or flywheels, or so on. So, as we have mentioned, all the panelists here, energy storage is one solution, but it's not the only solution. I think that also demand-side management and all these issues that we have already discussed, if we combine all of them, we have the best solution.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I think we have run out of time, but I would like to just use maybe half or 1 minute of each of you just for a closing remark, maybe what you think is the most important further step to take in terms of the energy system of islands to support the clean energy transition. So I'm going to ask for a brave volunteer to go first, and then I'm going to point names. The row. Professor Hatziargyriou, you want to give us a closing quick remark?
I think something that is missing that could provide a business case for batteries is how batteries can provide ancillary services. As I said before, frequency is a very important problem in islands, in isolated islands. So at the moment, frequency reserves are not particularly remunerated. There is no framework for that. This could help batteries to be developed in islands.
Thank you very, very much. Michail.
From my part, I would like to summarize. I think that interconnections and storage are viable tools. The technology progresses drastically. We have to identify the needs of a specific island, do our business case, combine the solutions available, and provide for each island the customized solution adapted to its needs. And work towards this this way. So,
thank you very much.
You have your.
Our takeaway comment would be not to forget our target. Our target is decarbonizing and security of supply. Actually, it's security of supply and decarbonizing. Storage and interconnections are just tools. So we shouldn't aim at storage and interconnections. We should aim at security of supply and decarbonization. That's the first takeaway from our side. And the second would be not forget the markets, because you need financing, you need investments to build these projects. Not everything can be subsidized and not forever. So you need to make the markets inclusive in this process.
Thank you very much. John?
Okay. I think that we have a very fruitful discussion here. Closing, I'd like to add that we talking about people, communities, and we try to find the best solution for them. The islands have very sensitive ecosystems, and we should also protect all the islands, and we need small, reliable, and clever solutions, and we don't make the islands as experiments. We try to find the best solution for them. It's wrong wording that we use the islands as experiments. We try to find the best solution for them. Okay.
Thank you very much. I'll go online. Maybe Joana first.
Well, to summarize, I would say that we have to increase the penetration of renewable energies in islands, but also we have to guarantee the stability and security of supply. And that's the challenge, that's the biggest challenge of all, in my opinion. Do that work to decarbonize, but maintain the security of the supply.
Thank you.
And thank you all.
Thank you for being here with us. Lucía, the last word, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would like to close remarking a very successful case that we have in Spain that my colleague mentioned before, that I didn't mention because I was focusing on planned projects like Tirasoria. That is the case of Corona del Viento in El Hierro, which I think is a very, very successful case and a model to look at. So yeah, regarding the next steps, as I said before, I think we have to finish this framework adaptation to the energy storage, and specifically in islands. And also, as my colleagues have also said, develop markets, and especially ancillary service markets we also don't have in islands in Spain, and I think it would be a good solution also to foster these technologies, together with the strengthening of R&D efforts, as I already said before as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us online. I want to thank the panel speakers also here, and I would like to ask our audience to give an applause for everybody. And thank you also to the audience here and online for staying with us. But hang on, there's a short break, but there's one more session to follow, very interesting one, and closing one, the final debate in, I'm afraid, 7 minutes. There you go. Thank you all. Have a good afternoon.